Welcome to Making It in Asheville, a podcast where you get to hear the stories behind some of your favorite artists and businesses here in town. Each episode, we interview a different local Ashevillean. We work to uncover how they are making it in Asheville and find actionable insights that you can then apply to your own work and life.
And in this episode, it's a special episode. We're going to recap all of season 4, which was 12 interviews. So this episode is a little bit different, but probably even better. We like to call it a poo-poo platter, a sampler round, appetizer
Poo-poo
course.
platter always sounds so weird.
But you get to taste a little bit of everything from this season rather than commit to just one. And we are your hosts. The first voice you heard was Sarah's I Am Tony, and we are a husband and wife team that moved to Asheville in May of 2019. Since then, we set out to answer one question, and that was, how do you make it in Asheville? We thought that a good way to try and answer that question would be to have conversations with business owners, entrepreneurs, artists, creatives from town, and really ask them what they're doing for work and to make ends meet, but also how they're making it. And so this is the podcast that was born of that dream, and we're excited to be at episode 62 with you.
I can't help but think of never mind. I was thinking of the song When I'm 64, but I was like, when I'm 62 in my head. And then I realized that it's actually 64. Anyways, episode 62. Holy moly. This season was a crazy season because of coronavirus and everything else that was going on.
And it was also brought to you by our season sponsor, Range Urgent Care. If you haven't heard of us speak about Range Urgent Care, well, allow me to give you the quick talking points. Range is I will call them revolutionary urgent care facility right here in our backyard. And that's backyard both if you're in Asheville proper or Black Mountain now. They have 2 locations, and they are doing urgent care in a way that I've never seen it done before. What does that mean, Tony? You're being very unclear. Well, it means that you can schedule ahead online and book a time, and that time is respected. So if you have an appointment at 3, walk in at 3, and you will be seen. That's amazing. Or you can have virtual visits with doctors, and you know exactly how much you're going to pay. So each visit to Range Urgent Care is either $150, $149, or you're paying an annual subscription membership fee, and that subscription membership fee starts at $30 a month. Because you are a Making It in Asheville listener, you get your first month of an annual subscription free. All you have to do is visit makingitinasheville.com/range. You can learn more about the special offer for you, our listener, and you can also learn more about Range.
Great. Thank you.
Now, Sarah was saying that this season was crazy, and it was.
Banana season. We had to change. We were thinking about doing video before this whole season started, and then we were kind of thrown into it because all of our interviews suddenly became virtual and had video with them through Zoom calls. So that was an upside of all of this, I would say. Yeah,
we jumped ahead a quarter. We were planning to do videos in Q3, the second half of the year. But so what we're going to do in this episode, to give you some context and also to set the stage, we're going to put 2 minutes into each episode of the season and try and keep it fast, keep it tight, keep it interesting, talk about the highlights that stand out to us and would probably be interesting to you. But we're going to move fast. What you should know is that we're going to have a show notes page for this episode, makingitinasheville.com/062, where we'll have links to all of the things that we talk about, all of the episodes of the season.
Exactly. And this is, again, a great episode if you haven't listened to all the episodes of the season and you just kind of want to get a sampler of what happened in this season, and then you can go back and listen to the full episodes that you think are the most interesting.
Yep.
So let's get started.
Perfect. I am going to pull up a handy-dandy stopwatch feature on my phone so that we can see it in digital.
I feel like this is always like a game.
It feels like a game
race
to me.
or something.
Right, so stopwatch. Cool. And as Sarah was kind of alluding to, right, this first interview came literally right when coronavirus really started. We were supposed to sit. Let's just tell it as part of the story. Timer starts now. So episode 50 came out on April 7th, and we interviewed Nick Dotson of Broken Helm.
Yeah. And we actually came across Nick because he is a fellow, I will say podcaster, but he's really more than that. He has a media production company. And in particular, this media production company works with former addicts to help them find an outlet to create, whether that's through podcast or through creating videos or other forms of art and media.
Yeah, it's honestly fantastic. We sat down with Nick to record. So before recording this episode, we were on Nick's Broken Helm podcast. So he's got
so much fun.
Yeah, he's got a media company called Broken Helm. They do all sorts of media production, whether it's, as Sarah said, music or podcast. So we went to his studio, sat down, was a guest on one of his organization's shows, and it was so fun, so interesting. And
the show is called No Clue Show, by the way, which is perfect for us because we really have no clue what we're doing half the time. It was so much fun. It was so much fun to be on the other side of the mic, first of all, but also they were just highly entertaining. So definitely go check out at least that episode. Check out
No Clue Show. But the next week we're planning to sit down with Nick, record all of our previous episodes had been recorded on location. We were scheduled to sit down with Nick at his home, and it was like the day that coronavirus became a very real thing in Asheville for the first time, and places were shutting down. And so we scrapped it. We were like kind of ahead of the 8 ball on that, said, you know what, maybe we just do it virtually. And so Nick Dotson was our first video podcast guest, and it was a wonderful conversation. The work that he's doing, I think, is tremendous. There's a future there that is something that I can really subscribe to. And he works again with addicts that's still identify as addicts, but mostly people who have been through treatments in some form or another. And it's fantastic. Broken Helm, Nick Dotson, 2 minutes. We will reset the clock and tell you about episode 51.
Awesome. Yeah. Episode 51 was with Marilyn Ball, and she is the host of the Speaking of Travel podcast. And she's also the author of The Rise of Asheville, which is sort of a historical point of view of how Asheville came to be where it is today, particularly from, I would say, a business point of view.
Yeah. And one of the things that we said, because we sat down, obviously, with Marilyn at the very beginning of this COVID experience was, what does Asheville look like today relative to when you moved here, a little over 30 years ago? And she highlighted some of these like really interesting similarities where there were, I don't remember the exact language. It was maybe like the 1,000, like the active 1,000.
The Asheville 1,000.
Asheville 1,000,
yeah.
Where like these people were just super committed to seeing positive change in the community. And, it's been, 2 months since this episode, and it feels like even more than ever, perhaps, that there's similarities in place. And I'm so inspired by what I'm seeing in the community of these people who are like super advocates and super, community organizers. And I think this episode just gives a very interesting history of Asheville from an insider's perspective. But also Marilyn Bell has a badass podcast called Speaking of Travel.
Yeah, she does. She is a part of iHeartRadio.
Yep.
And she has been in the podcasting world like way longer than most of us have. She's been doing this for a long, long time, and it really has a fantastic show. And she also has a new show, and I can't remember the name of it, but she's doing it with her granddaughter, and it's amazing. It's like a podcast between this grandmother and her granddaughter, and like the commentating on what's going on in the world. Anyways, she's a fantastic woman. Like Tony said, this is a great episode to kind of get a little bit of a glimpse into the history of Asheville, which we found really, really helpful and looking forward.
Perfect. And that was 2 minutes, and we will go on to episode 52 of the Making It in Asheville podcast with the founders of Moonlight Makers.
Perfect. Yeah, Moonlight Makers. This is Claire and Nicole. I think anyone who comes to Asheville, whether it's your first time or you're visiting, you can't help but come across Moonlight Makers t-shirts and totes. They just have these really funny, cute like puns and sayings on them. And they're everywhere. And they're not just in Asheville. They're actually selling through Amazon and all these other stores, retail shops in Asheville. So they're pretty well known.
And you sort of can't miss them when you come into town, and your goal, let's say for most people as they come into town for the first time, is like, I'm going to check out the downtown. I'm going to do whatever I can to check out the downtown. And their location is right on Rankin and Walnut. Mm-hmm. And so it's an amazing story of, they started as something fundamentally different than like a t-shirt company today. So in the intro to that episode, I remember being like, and tell us about what you do. And they're like, we're a t-shirt company. And we're like, that's how you describe
Yeah.
all of the things
so much more
that
than
you
just
do.
a t-shirt company. But yeah, their story from like, they were just like, we're moms, and we just wanted to like figure out a business to start together. And they had this other idea, which we don't want to go into too much detail, but it was totally different from what they're doing now.
Yeah.
And they've exploded, I would say, and really transformed.
From a micro Etsy store to a personal internal brand where they make all of the designs themselves. We just recently created a t-shirt, and we had it designed and screen printed through Moonlight Makers. So there's so much that they're doing, and they are the sweetest hearts. And they're because it was the very beginning of quarantine, the episode is recorded and they're in different spaces, and we did the best we could with audio and the tech, and it was so much fun. So please enjoy that episode 52 with the founders of Moonlight Makers. And now for episode 53. Ooh.
This is a very special episode because this was actually with Range Urgent Care, who was our season 4 sponsors.
You might remember them from the first couple minutes of the episode when we gave the sponsor shout-out. So Stephanie and Matt also, they represent, I think, the first married couple that we've interviewed, or one of?
No, I think they're the second we interviewed. Dean and Lisa from Atlas Branding before that. But yeah, this is one of the few married couples that we got to interview that are in the business together, which is always really fun for us because Tony and I are married and we work together. So getting to talk with another couple about how they do things is always very interesting.
Yes, we are honestly like, there are so many things about what they're up to that I find inspiring. And the standout that I remember from this episode is just how much we talked about thinking from first principles and the idea of trying to create businesses in spaces that are, yes, interesting to you, but also would be, call it orders of magnitude different than what anybody else is doing. I can't say yet that making it in Asheville a podcast or our business making it creative are orders of magnitude different than what anyone else is up to in marketing space or podcasting space. And that's why I think that I am so fascinated and enamored by what they're doing at Range, because it is so different from all of the alternatives in the space. Yeah,
they really took urgent care type of healthcare and stripped it down and said, well, why do we wear scrubs? Why don't we wear something different? Or why do we have to have like a waiting room where people have to wait? Like, why can't we just have an appointment and be on time? So like just really taking those simple things and those main problem areas where I think a lot of customers have problems with when they go to urgent care and make them better and different.
Love it. And that was 2 minutes on the dot. I'm resetting the clock. And we're moving to episode 54 with Jeff Kaplan of Venture Asheville. So Jeff Kaplan is historically a tour de force. If you've not met Jeff Kaplan at an event in town yet,
he's got spunk, is what we always say.
I used spunk, and Jeff was like, "Is that the word you use for me?" And I was, he's just, energy is at 11. And I would call of all of the guests so far on the show, of which we've had 45, I just counted today. Mm-hmm. I think he is about as central of a person, or in terms of the network that we're seeing, the spider web of connectivity in town. Jeff Kaplan is perhaps as connected or just as central as anyone that we've met yet, and his Rolodex to place people in businesses and community is, I find, very impressive. And we talked about more than just his role at Venture Asheville. What did we talk about? Yeah,
well, and a little bit of background. Venture Asheville is sort of a part of the Asheville's Chamber of Commerce, and they help startup businesses get off the ground here in Asheville and help them really accelerate. Jeff has an incredible background in just studying entrepreneurship. He basically went to school for this and has done many, many studies and many jobs within this field. He's been an entrepreneur himself more than once, I think 2 or 3 times. He told us about his different business ideas that
had an exit with some wordplay about dogs. I can't remember what it was. Puppy finder with that friend
Yeah,
FPHR.
I don't know. A lot of just really cool ideas. So we talked a lot about, what are the core competencies of successful entrepreneurs, which I think is perhaps one of the most interesting things that we talked about in this episode, because it really does give the insight for all of you entrepreneurs out there. Like what are the qualities, what are the characteristics that have worked for other people?
Yeah, and I would go, and my take on the episode is just we got more insight into the ways that Asheville Chamber of Commerce is working to, be supportive of the small business community here in Asheville. So there's different branches inside of the Chamber of Commerce we learned about. In this one, what stand out are 3 types of ways that businesses can evolve inside of the Asheville Chamber of Commerce Venture Asheville umbrella, starting from the Asheville Impact Microgrant, which if you're in present tense, listening to this, they just started handing out the checks from the microgrant in the last couple of days. So this is an exciting episode and informative episode, both in theory and in practice for local business owners. We went a little over 2 minutes.
That's a lot to say about Jeff Kaplan.
There's a lot to say.
Okay, so moving on, episode 55 was with Luke McLaughlin of Holistic Survival School.
Yeah, and so Luke is a television star by accident. And Luke, I mean, the truth. So Luke has been on a television show called Naked and Afraid 3 times, and it has done exceptionally well. And Luke has a survival school, and let's just call it a school here in Asheville, and he teaches ancestral skills that he has come upon and practiced in a very profound and deep way. His story of growing up what I'll loosely say as normal, and I guess answering this call and watching that progression happen over the years, I find very fascinating.
Yeah, and I think the thing that really struck me here was just how passionate Luke is about trying to show people how to remember what it really means to be human. So to really go back to our basic needs, to strip down of all the technology and the day-to-day work, and to reconnect with yourself and with nature.
Yeah, there were the 3 re's from this episode, right? So it was the relearning, remembering, and rewilding. And I found that his passion for this, for teaching and for experience, is just it feels so real and so deep and so powerful that it moved me in the conversation. And I really look forward to one day visiting his campus, his grounds here in Asheville, and getting to learn with and from him. It was a fantastic episode. And also, Sarah got to talk about her favorite movie of perhaps the last 12 weeks, which was Croods, DreamWorks film called The Croods. But that is 2 minutes, and that was our episode with Luke McLaughlin of Holistic Survival School. Our next episode 56, came out on May 19th, and we were joined by Obi Morgan, founder of Capital at Play.
So again, this is kind of one of those things that, I think even if you just visit Asheville once, you will likely come across a Capital at Play magazine somewhere in some Asheville store or restaurant or museum or whatever it is. I know that we did when we first came to Asheville. So this was really exciting to be able to sit down with the man who founded Capital at Play and understand the story of how it all happened, how he did it, and how it's evolved over the years.
Yeah, and the soundbite that we call this episode On Blind Ambition, and part of that is because Obi graduated from college and started Capital at Play. Yeah. That's a crazy, air quotes, first job. And so asking questions about what it was like selling those first ads. What was it like,
finding a printer,
having this vision and just executing it. And the conversation I found was very positive and optimistic and powerful. And there's a clear overlap in, 10 years ago, let's say, starting something in print, and today, we have this tiny media company that we're calling Making It in Asheville. And so, at least for us, there was a very clear overlap of his story and where we think we might be going.
Yeah.
Anything else? Cool. We saved a couple. We're taking back. We're making up for missed time on some of those
It's
other
not
ones.
a race.
I'm trying to respect the 2 minute shot
Tony's
clock.
so serious
I
about
do.
the 2 minute.
I care about this shot clock. I told people we're going to take.
Go on. If we're done, it's done.
All right. Episode 57. Molly Dingledine. Sarah, tell us about her.
Yes. So Molly Dingledine is a jeweler here in Asheville. She makes handmade, incredibly I would say intentional, designed, and well-crafted jewelry that are very, you have a lot of, I would say, nature-inspired pieces. Absolutely beautiful. But really what I would say mostly talked about in this episode was, or we also talked about in this episode, was her new nonprofit that she recently founded called Sisters in Circles. And this is a community of women that at least right now have come together to make hand sew masks, face masks, to help people with the coronavirus. And then they take the funds from their sales and give them back to communities of women that need help.
It's a beautiful story for so many reasons. Molly is just, you can feel her energy is so grounding and powerful and calming. And I think that the two businesses that we get to talk about with her, how fundamentally different they are. And how one is sort of, work alone, create a beautiful product on your own. The other is there's already 12 people or probably more at this point that are working in the team and managing people and communication, talking through those two fundamentally different businesses with her. Very exciting for me. Very, I see that as something that would be so hard and interesting that
well, in particular, we talked a little bit about what it was like for her to go from working by herself as an artist, right, maybe managing just a few people here and there that help her create her jewelry, to suddenly managing a team of I think over a dozen different women in this nonprofit, and how those are so different and how it's changed so much.
Yeah. So wonderful episode. The masks are beautiful as well. The jewelry is beautiful. Please do check out episode 57 with Molly. And episode 58 was
with Sarah Jane Case, who I think if you're on Instagram, you probably know her. She, I would say, is an influencer on Instagram. She also founded the Instagram account called Enneagram and Coffee, which has hundreds and thousands of followers. She recently published a book called The Honest Enneagram, and she has a coaching sort of experience called The Brave Collective as well.
Yeah, and you'll learn this if you listen to this episode. Sarah is very, very interested in Enneagrams.
Yes.
And so getting...
This Sarah. Well, it's not that Sarah. Sarah Jane too.
Sarah, co-host and brains of this operation, is a huge Enneagram enthusiast. And so getting to sit down with Sarah Jane and...
well, and if you don't know what the Enneagram is, I think it's just a quick little thing. It's it's a model that defines sort of 8 different personality types or personality tendencies that people tend to have. And so you are typically typed as one of those numbers. And there's way more I could go into, but that's the gist.
Yeah. And I'll say traditionally you would hear things like personality types, and you would hear things like Myers-Briggs. And so what I learned, because I'm not as into the Enneagram, but am more now after having this conversation, is that what Enneagram attempts to do is understand your motivations, the reason for why you want to do things. Not just, are you introverted or extroverted? Are you, whatever else is in the Myers-Briggs, I don't even remember anymore. But it tries to unpack the reason why you do some things. But also in this conversation, we go beyond the Enneagram. We talk about business in general. We talk about marketing in general. We talk about
what it was like for Sarah to write a book, her first book. And also some content strategy, because Sarah is truly an expert of creating Instagram, successful Instagram accounts. So she shares a little bit of insight of how she does that and what things work for her.
Perfect. Episode 59 with Jazz Urias. Oh my goodness! I was just on with Jazz saying that we still have his song on repeat. So we recorded this episode the day that Jazz released a new track with his project band called Two Coyote. Jazz is an artist living in Asheville. He makes music. He's played drums his entire life. He takes incredible photos. He's been published in Vogue Italia, and he's just a beautiful soul.
Yeah. So we learned a lot about what it was like for him to learn how to play music growing up, which wasn't, I would say, the traditional way. He was in,
which is, I mean, traditional way in so much
like classically trained, like going to a teacher or joining like a band class at school, which maybe he did, I don't know. But I mean, I just mean to say the way I learned music was by a teacher teaching me how to read the notes, and like I had recitals and stuff like that, and that's not what Jazz went through. He really, I think,
music.
Feels it. Exactly.
It's in him. Yeah, I agree.
Exactly.
And then, he lived in New York. He grew up in South Carolina. He's been in Asheville for a little under 10 years at this point. And so hearing the story of this career musician, transitioning towards a role in a music project where he's now not just behind a drum kit, he's the front man. And what has that been like for him? And what is it like releasing a song called Touch, which is OMG. There is,
so
it's great. B, it's like our summer song right now. And C, it's it's a little risque. There's some very real energy in that song. Makes me a little hot, makes me a little bothered, and I love it. So that is episode 59. Jazz Urias. We have links to the music and to this episode all on our website and in the show notes. But do support local music, and I think that you'll get earwormed much like we were. Episode 60, Aisha Adams. I'm resetting the clock. This episode was powerful, I'd say, in a word. Aisha is up to a ton in Asheville.
Yeah. She is a speaker, an author, a coach, an influencer, a blogger, and probably a million other things that I don't know about or haven't said.
And she might have said the most powerful sentence, I think, of the entire season, which was in the final minutes of every episode. We say, and where can people find you? Right? And her response to that was, you can find me anywhere in town where people are working to build a better community.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God. And she is so real. And so the primary things that stand out when I think Aisha Adams are two. One is equity over everything. If you haven't seen that shirt in town yet, they're available for sale at the Chamber of Commerce. Also her website, Equity Over Everything. And the other is this program with, what is it called?
Lenore Ryan.
Lenore. I want to say
University.
Edna Ryan, this beverage company. But with Lenore Ryan, she has a inclusivity and diversity training program that we can take in Asheville. And so, like, as we interviewed her, they were finalizing that contract. It's now live, and we're so excited to share.
Yeah, I think another thing that I really appreciated in this episode was Aisha sharing her 5 ways that businesses can show their support and show that Black Lives Matter beyond just posting on social media. And so this was a really, really timely episode with everything that's going on with the Black Lives Matter movement. And it was a very, I think, insightful, resourceful episode. And so we're incredibly thankful for Aisha for coming on and sharing those resources and tips with us.
And honestly feel privileged to be able to amplify the message. So episode 60, Aisha Adams, please do check it out. And then for our last interview of season 14, our what we called Father's Day episode. It came out the Tuesday following Father's Day. A lot of fathers get Father's Day presents late, so this is loosely our Father's Day episode. But Keenan Lake is the word Sarah used to describe it was just like driven. It is incredible to see what has happened in the program that Keenan started, which is called My Daddy Taught Me That, over the last 8 years, to go from a couple of kids who would show up to an after school program to almost 100, from it was a like semester long program, 3 months, 90-day thing, to year long nonstop organization. It is tremendous. And he does it as a second full-time job outside of being a social worker in the greater Buncombe area.
Yeah. And I think the thing that I love most about Keenan and his story is that as a social worker, he saw that there was an issue, or that there needed to be help for young men of single parent households who lacked a father figure in their lives, that they didn't have, anyone to talk to or any sort of leadership or mentorship in their lives. And so, rather than just say, well, that's the way it is, he actually did something about it and started this program. And that's really what it is. They bring on mentors. There's programming to visit other places, museums, cities, education. They even have things where they feed these kids at least once a week during their meetings. So it's a fantastic program. And again, Keenan does this all on a volunteer basis. All of the staff are volunteers. So they're working on sheer energy with this, which I think is incredibly inspiring.
Yeah, it's tremendous. And the name My Daddy Taught Me That was, and the program started as a article. The article expanded into a book, and the book became this program. And the program, we can see it happening, but this program is currently just in Asheville, but will more than likely end up showing up in cities around the region and then maybe around the country as well, all in on the work that Keenan Lake is doing with My Daddy Taught Me That, and then his wife is doing with My Sister Taught Me That. So what a beautiful organization, one that we're proud to have told a part of the story with. And that was a 12 interview episode season of season 4. This is the final episode of season 4, and it is, let's just say, a beginning of perhaps a new era of making it in Asheville. Sarah, do you want to explain a little bit about what might be changing in our small little world?
Yes, some very, very exciting news. Tony and I are officially moving out of our living room studio / office / home space and moving into a real office space, and are hoping to create our own little mini Making It in Asheville studio.
Yes, and so the next episode will likely not have the same. So shout out to our YouTube fans, followers, and subscribers, but will not have this same background aesthetic. Will likely be in a very empty, but warm and welcoming office space. And so we'll be moving out of here and into downtown Asheville. And we are so excited to continue to interview community members here in Asheville. We have a list for season 5 and conversation started, and we're excited about the makeup of season 5 in a way that is just, it's hard to contain. There's so many stories to tell in Asheville, and this is a particularly meaningful time to tell the most important ones that we can. And so thank you for choosing to listen to this podcast, to support the podcast with likes and subscribes and reviews on Apple Podcasts. It means the world to us. We are 62 episodes in and feel like we are just getting started, just getting the hang of this thing.
Yeah, for sure. So as always, if you would like to have links or learn more about anything we talked about in this episode, we have a show notes page at makingitinasheville.com/062. It's just the episode number. You can find links to everything and get connected to us there.
Yep. As I said a moment ago, thank you for liking and subscribing to the podcast. But I'll also say that if you are interested in the work that we're doing here and the stories that we're trying to tell about the community in our work to try and build a real community, Making It an Asheville community, then we welcome you to join our email newsletter. And you can find that at makingitinasheville.com/subscribe. That's where you will hear about things like our Monday Maker Mixer. This episode's coming out on a Tuesday. The Monday before it comes out, we'll have gotten a group of people together for we'll loosely call it networking, but better than networking because it's not meant to be as icky, but just community building experience. This one will be outdoors, respecting, 6 feet and quarantine rules, but we have a really strong vision to try and pull together a entrepreneur and creator community here in Asheville. If you're interested in it, please again visit makingitinasheville.com/subscribe.
And one more time, thank you to our sponsors, Range Urgent Care, for sponsoring this season and this episode. Range Urgent Care is truly reimagining the way that urgent care is done. They have fantastic features such as virtual visits. You can schedule your appointment online, and transparent pricing, as well as subscription. So you can pay for an annual subscription, have a certain number of access to visits, all that stuff.
Yeah.
They have subscription plans for business, family, and individual. So no matter what your needs are, they can help you there. Great news. We have 1 month free for all of our Making It in Asheville
Even
listeners.
if you're a business, you could be the biggest business in town.
Yeah, this could save you a lot of money. So 1 month free. All you have to do is go to makingitinasheville.com/range. Click on any of the links there to learn more. You can also use the coupon code Making It in Asheville during your checkout process on the Range Urgent Care website.
And one last note. We keep saying one last, and there's another one. But another note is that this episode is powered by Making It Creative. That is Sarah and my marketing business. What we loosely call marketing ends up being a lot about working with small businesses, medium-sized businesses, on understanding their business and attempting to create the highest value marketing engine that we can. Sometimes that looks like email marketing. Sometimes that looks like revamping a website. Sometimes that looks like just improving sales processes, because your website's not making you any money right now, and it won't be no matter what we do in the near term. So let's just make your business stronger. It loosely looks like sales. Oftentimes is a combination of sales and marketing. And what we'll say is, if you're interested in just learning more about that, we welcome you to visit makingitcreative.com.
Amazing. And lastly, if you or someone you know would like to be on the podcast, we are always looking for new guests. You can nominate them or yourself at makingitinasheville.com/podcast. We have a nifty little form there where you can fill out some more information about yourself so we can get to know you. And also, we welcome you to come to our next Monday Maker Mixer event so that we can see you in person.
Yep.
Or face-to-face.
Masked, face-to-face, whether it's virtual or in person. We look forward to it. So crazy what's happened in the first half of 2020.
Yeah, we keep saying aliens are going to come in the next 6 months.
But whatever the future holds, I want to say, and I'll be so bold as to say, the Making It in Asheville podcast will carry on. We will continue, asking people how they're doing, what they're doing, and supporting the community where we can. And so looking forward to whatever the back half of 2020 brings.
Here's to that.
Bring it on, universe.
The show must go on.
The show must go on. All right, and that's it. That's Making It in Asheville, episode 62. Sarah, high five.